The wrong turn. Jack Carter was a man of routine. He liked things simple. Fly the cargo ship, drop off the supplies, get paid, and head back home. No surprises. No trouble. That was his rule. But space had other plans for him. Jack was cruising through the Vulcan trade route, humming to himself as he checked his ship's control panel. Everything looked normal. The stars stretched endlessly outside his cockpit window, and his ship, the Silver Hawk, glided smoothly through the darkness. Then, out of nowhere, his navigation system glitched. The screen flickered. The autopilot jerked. Red warning lights flashed. Error. Route recalculating. The computer voice droned. Jack frowned. That wasn't right. He hadn't touched anything. He tapped the screen, but it was frozen. His ship suddenly veered left, taking a sharp turn into unknown space. No, stop that. Jack hit the emergency controls, trying to override the system. Nothing worked. It was as if something, or someone, had hijacked his ship's course. Then, a new warning appeared on the screen. Entering restricted territory. Jack's stomach dropped. Restricted. Before he could react, the ship's radar screamed with an alert. A massive alien battleship appeared on his screen, moving fast. It was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. Dark, sharp, and covered in glowing blue markings. It was twice the size of his ship, and it was heading straight for him. "Oh, this is bad," Jack muttered. A deep voice came through his ship's speakers. "Unknown vessel, you have entered sacred space. Prepare to be boarded." Jack's heart pounded. Sacred space. He hadn't meant to come here. This was a mistake. Wait, this is a misunderstanding. My ship. Before he could explain, a powerful blue tractor beam locked onto his ship. The Silver Hawk jerked violently as the alien ship pulled it in like a predator grabbing its prey. Jack tried to break free, but his engines were useless. His controls were dead. His ship was completely trapped. Oh, great. I am so screwed. Captured. Jack braced himself as his ship was pulled into the alien battleship's docking bay. His breathing was heavy. He needed a plan, but what could he do against a giant warship? With a loud hiss, the Silver Hawk's hatch was forced open. Tall, armored alien warriors stormed in. Their armor was black with glowing blue symbols. Their golden eyes glowed behind dark helmets, and they carried long energy spears. Jack raised his hands. Hey, I surrender. No need to zap me. The biggest warrior stepped forward. Silence, human. You have violated sacred space. Jack gulped. Look, there's been a mistake. My ship messed up. I didn't mean to. The warrior grabbed his arm and yanked him forward. You will answer before the Queen. The Queen. Jack was dragged through the alien ship's dark hallways. The walls pulsed with a strange blue energy, and eerie symbols glowed along the floors. Other alien warriors watched as he passed, whispering in their strange language. Finally, the warriors shoved him into a massive throne room. Jack barely had time to take in his surroundings before he saw her. The Queen. She sat on an obsidian throne, tall and imposing. Her deep violet skin shimmered under the glowing blue lights of the hall. Her sharp golden eyes locked onto Jack, studying him like he was some pathetic insect. Her armor was different, sleek, royal, but built for battle. A long black and blue cape draped over her shoulders. Jack had never seen an alien like her before. One of the warriors spoke. Queen Zarkala, we have captured the intruder. The Queen slowly stood. She was taller than Jack by at least a foot. She stepped forward with a predator's grace, eyes never leaving him. Jack swallowed hard. Human, she said, her voice smooth yet commanding. Do you know where you are? Jack hesitated. Restricted space. The warriors around him tensed. Some gripped their weapons tighter. The Queen's expression did not change. You have trespassed on the sacred lands of my people. Do you know the punishment? Jack forced a nervous smile. Let me guess. a friendly warning, and a ride home. The Queen's lips curved into the slightest smirk. Death. Jack's smile vanished. Ah, right. That's not great. The warriors lifted their weapons, ready to strike. Jack's mind raced. He needed to talk his way out of this. Wait. This was an accident. My ship messed up, I swear. I didn't mean to come here. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then, to Jack's surprise, she turned to her advisors. The ritual is about to begin. Jack blinked. Ritual. The Queen looked back at him. You have come at an interesting time, human, and fate has decided your place. Jack's stomach twisted. The Queen raised her hand. The marriage ceremony will proceed. Jack's heart stopped. Marriage. What marriage? Before he could react, the warriors cheered. Jack was completely confused. What the hell was going on? Then realization hit him like a meteor. He wasn't being executed. He was being married. To her. Married to the Queen. Jack Carter had been in bad situations before. Pirates, engine failures, bounty hunters. But this was a whole new level of crazy. Standing in the middle of an alien throne room, surrounded by towering warriors, Jack felt his brain short-circuit. The queen of these aliens, Zarkella, had just declared he was getting married to her. And the crowd had cheered. Jack raised a hand. Okay, time out. What do you mean? Marriage. The alien warriors stopped cheering. A few turned to look at the Queen, as if wondering the same thing. Zarkella's golden eyes pierced through him, her face calm, unreadable. You have entered sacred territory on the day of the ritual. Her voice was smooth but deadly serious. And by fate's will, you have been chosen. Jack blinked rapidly. Chosen for what? The Queen tilted her head slightly, as if he were slow to understand. To be my king. Jack almost laughed. Almost. Then he noticed the warriors gripping their weapons tighter. Their expressions had turned cold. Not laughing. Not amused. Okay. Not the time for jokes. Jack forced the smile. Right. Look, that's real sweet and all, but I'm not exactly. You cannot refuse, the Queen interrupted. Her words hung in the air like a blade over his throat. Jack let out a nervous chuckle. Yeah. And what happens if I do? A nearby warrior stepped forward, gripping his energy spear. Then you die. Jack sighed, rubbing his forehead. Of course, because why wouldn't a wrong turn into alien space end in death or marriage? Or royal wedding? That Jack didn't agree to. Before Jack could protest further, the ceremony began. Drummers started playing a deep, rhythmic beat, filling the throne room. Large, glowing banners unfurled from the ceiling, displaying alien symbols he couldn't read. Warriors stamped their feet in perfect unison, a chant rising in their strange language. Jack stood frozen as several servants approached him, placing heavy golden bands on his wrists. The metal was warm, almost buzzing with energy. What's this? Jack asked. One of the warriors smirked. Your binding bands. A sign of union. Jack gulped. Union? You mean? You are now part of the royal bloodline, another warrior said proudly. A sacred honor. Jack wasn't sure how sacred honor translated into space kidnapping with bonus marriage, but he was pretty sure he didn't like it. A booming voice silenced the room. The deadly warrior trials. Jack Carter had faced some terrible mornings in his life, waking up to pirates looting his cargo, crash landing on a hostile planet, and even that one time he accidentally insulted a warlord's mother. But this was officially the worst. Standing in the middle of a Colosseum-style battle arena, Jack wiped the sweat from his brow. The air smelled of fire and metal, the walls echoing with the deafening cheers of thousands of alien spectators. And right in front of him, a beast the size of a cargo ship, with black scales, glowing blue eyes, and razor-sharp claws capable of slicing through solid steel. The sacred beast. His first trial. Jack sighed, stretching his arms. All right, buddy. Let's make a deal. You don't kill me. I don't scream like a coward and run for my life. Sound good? The beast let out an earth-shaking roar. Jack nodded. Right, talking's not gonna work. Good to know. From the royal balcony, Queen Zarkela watched in silence. Her golden eyes locked onto Jack, measuring him. Beside her, the High Advisor spoke. He is weak, the advisor sneered. He will die in moments. Zarkela did not respond. Down in the arena, Jack knew he had one option: fight smart. He didn't have brute strength, but he had his brain, and that had kept him alive through some pretty awful situations before. The beast charge. Jack dodged at the last second, rolling to the side. The massive claw missed him by inches, slamming into the ground with enough force to crack the stone beneath them. Jack barely had time to react before the creature swung again. A wall of claws came straight for him. Thinking fast, Jack grabbed a broken spear from the ground, using it to vault over the attack. His feet hit the ground hard, but he kept moving. Speed. That was his only advantage here. The beast turned, snarling in frustration. Jack glanced around. What could he use? His eyes locked onto the stone pillars surrounding the arena. They were cracked and unstable, held together by old metal bindings. A plan started forming in his head. All right, big guy. You want to kill me. You're gonna have to work for it. Jack ran, straight at the pillars. The beast roared and followed, its massive bulk shaking the ground as it charged. At the last second, Jack dove to the side. The beast, unable to stop in time, slammed full force into the weakened pillar. The stone shattered on impact, and the heavy structure collapsed, burying the creature under a ton of rubble. Dust filled the air. The crowd fell silent. Then, nothing. Jack held his breath. Had he done it? Had he actually? The rubble exploded outward, and the beast emerged, bloodied but still very, very angry. Jack groaned. Oh, come on. From the royal balcony, Zarkela leaned forward slightly, interest flickering in her eyes. Most warriors died instantly in the beast trial. This human was still alive, and he was adapting. Jack dodged another attack, heart pounding. The beast was slower now, injured. That meant he had one last chance. He spotted a second pillar, even more unstable than the first. He sprinted toward it, shouting at the beast, "Hey, ugly." Round 2. The beast roared and charged again. At the last second, Jack grabbed a loose chain lying on the ground and looped it around a jagged piece of stone. He yanked it with all his strength and... crack! The second pillar collapsed, this time falling directly onto the beast's back. The impact sent a shockwave through the ground. The beast let out one last, gurgling snarl, and then fell still. Silence. Then, the entire arena erupted into deafening cheers. Jack, breathing hard, raised a fist. That's right. Who's the weak one now? From above, Zarkela watched him carefully. Perhaps this human was more than he appeared. Trial 2. The test of strategy. Jack barely had time to catch his breath before the next challenge was announced. A massive war table was brought into the arena. Miniature models of ships, armies, and battle formations were placed across its surface. The advisor smirked. The king must prove he can command an army. Jack ran a hand through his hair. I'm a cargo pilot, not a general. Zarkela finally spoke. Then you will fail. Jack frowned. He wasn't a soldier, sure, but he knew strategy. He'd spent years dealing with smugglers, warlords, and pirates. That was its own kind of battlefield. The challenge was simple. The warriors would simulate an invasion. Jack had to outthink them. The warriors placed their pieces. Jack studied the board. And then he grinned. He moved his pieces in a way they didn't expect. Instead of defending the strongest areas, he let them take those positions, only to trap them from behind. The warriors looked confused. The advisor sneered. You fool. You've left the capital city open. Jack leaned forward. No, I haven't. He moved one final piece, a hidden fleet he had kept in reserve. The simulated enemy forces collapsed. The crowd roared in approval. The advisors stared in shock. Impossible. Zarkela, for the first time, smiled faintly. Not bad. Jack leaned back, smirking. So, do I get a gold star, or what? Zarkela's eyes glowed with intrigue. One more trial remains. Trial 3. The strength of the king. The last test was simple. Jack had to fight one of the Queen's best warriors in single combat. His opponent, a 7-foot-tall alien warlord with double the muscle mass and a battle axe the size of a hover car. Jack let out a long sigh. Of course, because why not? The crowd cheered wildly as the warrior raised his axe. Jack cracked his knuckles. This was going to hurt. Assassination attempt. Jack Carter had barely survived the warrior trials, outsmarting an army, wrestling with a giant monster, and somehow not getting his face caved in by a 7-foot-tall alien warlord. And what did he get for all that? A fancy cloak, a royal title, and a target on his back. Now he was officially king consort of the Karathi Empire, which, as it turned out, was a death sentence in disguise. A dangerous new reality. Jack sat in his new royal chambers, a massive stone and metal hall inside the Karathi battleship. The place was decorated with war banners, ancient alien weapons, and symbols of victories won over centuries of conquest. He should have been celebrating. Instead, he was nursing a bruised shoulder, drinking some weird blue alien liquor, and trying to process how his life had spiraled into absolute madness. The doors swung open, and Queen Zarkela entered. Jack stood quickly. Oh, hey, Your Majesty. Or do I call you wife now? Or... She raised a brow, unimpressed. You did well today. Better than expected. Jack smirked. So I'm not getting executed. That's nice. She stepped closer, her golden eyes intense. Not yet. Jack swallowed hard. That's less nice. Zarkela studied him. You have earned your place, but not everyone agrees with fate's decision. Jack sighed. Lem guess. Someone wants me dead. She nodded. Many. Before Jack could react, a sharp whistle cut through the air. His instincts screamed. He ducked, just as a dagger flew past his head, slamming into the wall behind him. Zarkela spun, drawing her blade in one swift motion. The guards rushed in, but the assassin was gone, vanished into the shadows. Jack's heart pounded. Well, that was fast. Hunted in the shadows. Jack wasn't an idiot. He knew exactly what this meant. He had just become king, and someone wanted him out of the picture immediately. Zarkela was already giving orders, her voice sharp as steel. Find them. Now. Jack ran a hand through his hair. So, assassins. That's normal. One of the guards, a battle-scarred warrior named Kellen, grunted. Very normal. You are unworthy to rule in the eyes of many. Jack threw up his hands. Great. Then they can take the job. I didn't ask for this. Kellen smirked. It does not matter. You wear the crown now. You live, or you die with it. Jack muttered. These aliens really need a better political system. The first attack. The next night, Jack couldn't sleep. The whole palace felt too big, too quiet, too dangerous. Every shadow felt like a hidden enemy. He was right to be paranoid. In the dead of night, his instincts kicked in again. He barely had time to roll out of bed before a blade slashed through his pillow, missing his throat by inches. Son of a... Jack grabbed a metal tray from a nearby table and threw it hard. The assassin dodged, but the noise alerted the guards. Kellen and a squad of warriors burst into the room. The assassin, a hooded figure clad in sleek, black armor, made a desperate run for the window. Jack acted on instinct. He grabbed the nearest weapon, a heavy ceremonial spear, and threw it. The assassin twisted midair, but wasn't fast enough. The spear clipped his leg, sending him crashing to the floor. The guards pinned him down immediately. Tsar Kela arrived, looking furious. She knelt beside the captured assassin and ripped off his hood. Jack expected some hardened warrior. Instead, he found himself looking at a young, terrified Karathi noble. Jack's stomach dropped. This wasn't just about killing him. This was political. A web of betrayal. Tsar Kela's expression darkened. Your family has sworn loyalty to the crown. The assassin spat at her feet. You disgrace our people by binding with a human. Jack crossed his arms. You guys really hate me, huh? The assassin hissed. You are an outsider, a weakling. You do not belong on the throne. Jack raised a brow. Buddy, I don't want to be here any more than you want me here. Tsar Kela's voice was cold. Who sent you? The assassin hesitated. Keln grabbed the back of his head and slammed him into the floor. The noble groaned in pain but laughed weakly. Kill me if you wish. More will come. Jack glanced at Tsar Kela. So, what do we do with him? Tsar Kela didn't answer immediately. Then, without hesitation, she grabbed a dagger and drove it straight through the noble's chest. Jack staggered back as the assassin gasped, eyes going wide, before slumping lifelessly. The guards bowed in approval. Jack, he was horrified. Jesus, you could have just locked him up. Tsar Kela wiped the blood off her blade, her gaze calm. Mercy is weakness. Jack clenched his fists. Yeah. Well, I call it not being a damned psychopath. The room fell dead silent. Several warriors stared at him, some shocked, others tense. Tsar Kela simply tilted her head. Do you question the ways of my people? Jack's jaw tightened. I question a lot of things, Your Majesty, starting with why I'm still here. Tsar Kela studied him for a long moment. Then she smirked. Good. Jack frowned. What? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. A true king does not follow blindly. He challenges, he questions, and he survives. Jack exhaled. So, I passed another test. Tsar Kela's eyes gleamed. Perhaps. The truth revealed. Later that night, Jack sat alone, staring at the blood-stained floor. Keln approached him. You are troubled, human. Jack sighed. I don't do the whole stabbing people in the heart thing. Keln chuckled. Then you have much to learn. Jack shook his head. Who sent that guy? Keln hesitated, then spoke in a low voice. There is a faction within the court that wants the queen removed. Jack blinked. Wait, not just me. They want her gone too. Keln nodded. The queen is strong, but her rule is not absolute. Many believe she has made a mistake choosing you. Jack groaned, rubbing his temples. I hate politics. Keln grinned. Then you are in the wrong place, King Carter. Jack sighed. Yeah, I figured that out about 5 assassination attempts ago. Escape or embrace. Jack Carter had survived 3 assassination attempts, a monster fight, and a battle strategy trial, all in the span of 2 days. That had to be some kind of record. Now sitting alone in his royal chambers, Jack stared at the alien moonlight streaming through the window, deep in thought. The facts were simple. Half the royal court wanted him dead. The queen herself was a mystery, sometimes an ally, sometimes terrifying. He was officially the king consort of a warrior empire, and he had no idea what the hell he was doing. This wasn't his fight. He wasn't a warrior, a politician, or a leader. He was a cargo pilot, for crying out loud. He had to get out of here. And tonight, he was going to escape. The escape plan. Jack paced the chamber, running through his plan. He had been studying the guard rotations for the past few days. The outer docking bay had a small maintenance corridor, one that the warriors didn't guard too closely. If he could sneak out, disable the alarms, and hijack a small ship, he could disappear into space. The queen wouldn't chase him. Would she? Jack shook the thought away. Doesn't matter. I'm leaving. A knock at the door made him freeze. Keln, the scared warrior guard, stepped inside. The Queen summons you. Jack tensed. Now. Keln nodded. Now. Damn it. Jack sighed. One last meeting. Then I'm gone. A private meeting. The Queen's personal chambers were unlike anything Jack had expected. Instead of a cold war room, it was a dimly lit hall filled with ancient artifacts, tapestries of past rulers, weapons mounted on the walls, and a massive skylight showing the stars above. Zar Kela stood near the window, her golden eyes reflecting the starlight. Jack hesitated at the doorway. You called. She turned, studying him carefully. You are planning to run. Jack's stomach dropped. How the hell did she? Do what? He forced a laugh. Run. Me? No way. I love it here. Great company. Assassins and everything. She stepped forward. I see the way you watch the doors. The guards. The ships. You are looking for a way out. Jack clenched his jaw. Damn, she was sharper than he gave her credit for. So what? Jack crossed his arms. Are you here to stop me? Zar Kela was silent for a long moment. Then, to Jack's shock, she said, No. Jack blinked. Wait, really? Zar Kela nodded. If you wish to leave, you may. Jack had expected a fight, a challenge, maybe even a threat. But this, something about it unnerved him more than if she had drawn her sword. Jack exhaled. Okay. Good. So, I guess that's it then. Zar Kela tilted her head. Is it? Jack hesitated. Something in her voice made him pause. There was no anger in her words, no sarcasm, just something else, something unreadable. You do not belong here, Zar Kela continued. You do not know our ways, our war, our people. Jack nodded. Finally, something we agree on. She stepped closer, eyes locked onto his. And yet, you survived. Jack swallowed. Yeah, well, I'm hard to kill. Zar Kela gave a small, unreadable smile. That is why I chose you. Jack frowned. You didn't choose me. That was some ritual accident nonsense. Zar Kela shook her head. I could have refused. I could have let the warriors execute you. But I did not. Jack's breath hitched. That was a damn good point. She continued, voice steady. You think fate brought you here. Perhaps it did. But what you do next, that is your choice. Jack clenched his fists. My choice? You mean, besides getting stabbed in my sleep? Zar Kela's expression darkened. If you stay, I will protect you. Jack laughed bitterly. Oh yeah, like you protected the last guy who questioned you. Zar Kela's eyes flashed. You think me a monster? Jack hesitated. Then he exhaled. I don't know what I think. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, Zar Kela removed her armor's gauntlet. Jack watched as she placed her bare palm against a control panel, and a holographic map appeared. It was a star chart. Jack's star chart. His home system was marked on it, a clear flight path back to human space. Zar Kela spoke softly, almost regretfully. The choice is yours, Jack Carter. Jack stared at the map. He could leave right now. Go home, back to normal life. But something in his gut twisted uncomfortably. Why was she doing this? Why was she making it so easy? Jack looked back at her. Her expression was unreadable, but her golden eyes held something different now. Something he hadn't seen before. Respect. And maybe something else. Jack sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. You really suck at making things simple, you know that. Zar Kela tilted her head slightly, smirking. I have been told. Jack looked at the map again. Then, with a slow breath, he turned it off. A king's choice. Jack Carter did not run that night. Instead, he stepped forward, staring at his alien queen. All right. He exhaled. You win. I'll stay. Zarkella studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Good. Jack ran a hand down his face. I'm gonna regret this, aren't I? Zarkella smirked. Almost certainly. Jack sighed. Well, at least he wasn't bored. War breaks out. Jack Carter had officially lost his mind. Instead of taking the easy way out, hopping on a stolen ship, and disappearing into the void, he had done the absolute dumbest thing possible. He had stayed. Now he was standing on the bridge of a warship, staring at dozens of enemy vessels filling the view screen. The Karathi Empire was under attack, and Jack, for some insane reason, was right in the middle of it. The storm begins. Alarms blared. The warship's command deck was a frenzy of movement. Karathi warriors shouted orders, their deep voices mixing with the hum of battle systems coming online. Jack stood beside Queen Zarkella, watching the chaos unfold. This happens often, he muttered. Zarkella didn't look at him. Prepare for battle. Jack let out a dry laugh. Yeah, I figured. A holographic display flickered to life before them, showing the battlefield. The enemy fleet was massive. At least 20 warships, all marked with the blood-red insignia of the Vor Dominion, a rival faction within the Karathi Empire. Rebels. Jack's stomach tightened. They're your own people. Zarkella's jaw clenched. They were. Jack exhaled. This is because of me, isn't it? Zarkella's gaze didn't waver. It was inevitable. You only gave them an excuse. Jack crossed his arms. Glad I could help. A warrior rushed up to them, bowing. My queen. The Vor fleet has activated weapons. They demand your surrender, or war. The room fell silent. Zarkella stepped forward. Then we shall give them war. The command deck erupted into cheers. Jack sighed. Of course. Why negotiate when you can just blow things up? Zarkella shot him a look. Would you rather surrender? Jack raised his hands. Hey, I didn't say that. The battle had begun. First blood. The enemy fleet opened fire first. Jack barely had time to brace himself before the ship shook violently, red warning lights flashing across the deck. Explosions rippled across the shields as energy cannons blasted through space, illuminating the battlefield like a storm of fire and metal. Zarkella didn't flinch. She simply turned to her warriors. Advance. Strike their flanks. The Karathi fleet moved in perfect formation, firing back with terrifying precision. Jack watched in stunned silence. The Karathi didn't just fight. They hunted. Their warships dove between enemy fire, moving like predators in the void, striking hard and fast. Jack had seen human battles before. Messy, tactical, all about survival. But this was something else entirely. It was a dance of destruction. The Vor ships began to fall, one by one. Jack felt a tiny flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could win this. Then everything went to hell. Betrayal from within. A Karathi warship suddenly turned, firing on their own fleet. Jack's heart stopped. What the hell was that? A deep, smug voice crackled over the comms. Did you really think all your people were loyal, Queen? Zarkella's face darkened. Jack recognized the voice immediately. The same high advisor who had doubted him from the start. The Vor fleet wasn't alone. They had traitors inside the Empire. And now, they were outnumbered. Jack takes control. The ship shook violently as the combined enemy forces closed in. Jack's mind raced. They needed a plan. Fast. He turned to the war table, studying the map. The Vor fleet had overwhelming numbers, but they were predictable. Jack took a deep breath. We can still win this. Zarkella's eyes snapped to him. Explain. Jack pointed at the map. The Vor are pushing straight toward the flagship. It's a brute force move. But if we lure them in, make them think they have us trapped, we can flip it. Zarkella frowned. You are suggesting we... What? Jack's voice hardened. Bait them. Let them push into our formation. Then we cut them off and collapsed the trap. Keln, the scared warrior, grunted. That is bold. Jack smirked. You mean stupid, but it might work. Zarkella studied him for a long moment. Then she smirked back. Do it. The trap is set. The Karathi fleet faked a retreat, drawing the Vor deeper into their ranks. The enemy, thinking they had won, charged in full force. Then, Jack gave the order. Now, the entire Karathi fleet turned at once, closing the gap behind the Vor ships. They were surrounded. Zarkilla raised her blade. Fire. The space around them erupted in light and flame. Vor ships exploded one after another, trapped in their own failed assault. Jack let out a breath. It was working. They were winning. The final betrayal. Just as victory seemed certain, something unexpected happened. A small Vor ship broke away from the battle, heading straight for the command ship. Jack's blood ran cold. They're coming for us. Before he could react, a loud explosion rocked the ship. Jack was thrown backward, slamming against the wall. The lights flickered. The room filled with smoke. And through the chaos, a figure stepped onto the bridge. The High Advisor. And behind him, a dozen armed Vor assassins. The warriors on the bridge turned to fight, but the High Advisor held up a detonator. Surrender, he sneered, or this ship burns. Jack wiped the blood from his lip. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The final choice. Jack Carter had survived assassination attempts, deadly warrior trials, and a full-scale space battle. Now he was on his knees, blood trickling from his lip, surrounded by armed assassins, staring at the smug face of the High Advisor, the traitor who had orchestrated this entire coup. The Karathi flagship was damaged, smoke filling the bridge, alarms blaring in warning, and the remaining Vor warships were still in battle outside. And at the center of it all, Jack, a human cargo pilot who had no business being here, and yet, somehow, the fate of an entire warrior empire now rested on his next move. The enemy within. The High Advisor sneered, stepping forward, holding a detonator in one hand. Your reign is over, Queen Zarkella. Zarkella stood tall, her golden eyes burning with fury. But Jack could see the situation was dire. The remaining loyal warriors were outnumbered, and any sudden moves could trigger the ship's destruction. Jack exhaled slowly. Think, Carter, think. Option 1. Rush the guy, probably get shot in the face. Option 2. Surrender, which meant death anyway. Option 3. Talk his way out. Jack wiped the blood from his mouth and chuckled. You know, I gotta say, for a traitor, you sure took your sweet time. The High Advisor frowned. Excuse me. Jack grinned. I mean, seriously. You had a dozen chances to kill me before now. Why the whole dramatic monologue routine? The assassins glanced at each other. The High Advisor hesitated, eyes narrowing. Jack saw his opening. You need us alive, don't you? Jack leaned forward. If you could have just killed us outright, you would have. But you can't. Because this little rebellion of yours, it's not as strong as you're pretending it is. The High Advisor's jaw clenched. Jack was right. The Vor rebellion wasn't a guaranteed victory yet. They still needed the Queen's official surrender to gain full control. And that meant Jack and Zarkella were still valuable pieces on the board. Flipping the table, Jack looked at Zarkella. I assume your people have a trial by combat rule, right? Zarkella's eyes flickered with understanding. You wish to invoke the right of dominion. The High Advisor's face twisted in anger. This is ridiculous. Zarkella cut him off. Silence. She turned to Jack. You would challenge him. Jack smirked. Unless you want to do it. Zarkella's lips curled into a dangerous grin. Very well. Let the challenge be honored. Trial by combat. The assassins stepped back, forming a circle around them. The High Advisor scowled. This is pointless. "You're a weakling." Jack rolled his shoulders. "Buddy, I've been called worse." The High Advisor lunged, swinging a curved Karathi blade, but Jack ducked, barely dodging in time. Fast, Jack grabbed a fallen warrior's spear, twirling it in his hands. He wasn't a trained fighter, but he was a survivor. And right now, that was all that mattered. The High Advisor struck again, blade whistling through the air, but Jack sidestepped, using his smaller frame to move quicker. The crowd roared, watching intently. Then, Jack saw his chance. As the High Advisor overextended his swing, Jack twisted his spear, hooking the blade and yanking it away. The traitor stumbled, momentarily off balance. Jack took his shot. He slammed the butt of the spear into the High Advisor's gut, then whirled around, sweeping his legs out from under him. The High Advisor hit the ground hard, his blade skidding away. Jack immediately pinned him down, spear pressed to his throat. The entire bridge fell silent. Zarkella stepped forward, towering over them. End it. Jack's grip tightened. But then, he hesitated. Killing this man would be the Karathi way. But Jack wasn't Karathi. He wasn't a warlord. He wasn't a conqueror. He was human. He took a deep breath and lowered the spear. No. The warriors murmured in shock. Jack stood, looking at Zarkella. "We're better than him." Zarkella studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Very well." She turned to her guards. "Take him away. Let him live in disgrace." The High Advisor screamed in protest as warriors dragged him away. Jack exhaled. It was over. The rebellion had failed. And somehow, he was still alive. The aftermath. Hours later, after the battle had ended, Jack stood with Zarkella on the damaged bridge, looking out into the wreckage of the battlefield. She turned to him. "You could have killed him." Jack shrugged. "Yeah, but that's not my style." Zarkella studied him for a moment, then smirked. "You are a strange king, Jack Carter." Jack laughed, running a hand through his hair. "Tell me about it." She stepped closer. "And yet, you remain." Jack met her gaze. He had come so close to leaving. But now he realized. He didn't want to. Jack smirked. "Yeah, I guess I do." Zarkella's golden eyes gleamed. "Then let us see where this war takes us, my king." Jack grinned. "Lead the way, Your Majesty." And as the distant stars burned bright, Jack Carter finally embraced his new destiny.